Hello, internet fans. It's your old pal Rottin Roger DeMarco here from 3bproductionco.com. In this video, we're going to be talking about my top 5 horror films from 1983. So let's get started. Coming in at number 5 is Joseph Sargent's film, Nightmares. This is a badass horror anthology that I'm kind of new to. Just saw it for the first time a few months ago and I absolutely love this film. I can't believe I went so long without seeing this film. Of course, it being an anthology film, you get a little bit of everything. You've got a slasher story, you've got a killer video game story, you've got all types of fun stuff. And by far, my favorite story is the killer video game story with Emilio Estevez. I don't want to spoil too much about this movie other than, guys, it's super fucking badass, and it had to be in my top 5 because I never hear anybody talk about it. So it managed to get in here, and it's a movie that you really should check out. If you're a fan of anthology films, if you want to watch Emilio Estevez fight off a killer Atari 2600 game, look no further because it's here, right here in this movie. Moving on to my number 4 horror film from 1983 is Tom McLaughlin's One Dark Night. Wow, this is another movie eluded me for a very long time and I finally got to see it. I really like Tom McLaughlin's director style. Most of you know that name because he is responsible for Jason Lives. So he has a very tongue-in-cheek style about him, but he really appreciates and loves those old school gothic horror films like Frankenstein and the Hammer films and all of that stuff. He's into that sort of thing. So the plot synopsis of One Dark Night is Meg Tilly is in a sorority fraternity. Is it a sorority when it's girls? I don't know. Either way, she's in this group of girls. She's trying to become part of their house. So they have an initiation by having the new girls spend the night in a mausoleum. And wouldn't you know it, crazy shit starts happening. I'm not spoiling it for you, but you have got to see this movie. If you love E.G. Daily, you love Meg Tilly, you want awesome looking zombie-esque creatures, this movie's right up your alley. You gotta see it. That's why it's my number 4 horror film from 1983. This is where the list starts getting really tough for me because a lot of good stuff came out this year, guys, and I had to pick and choose very carefully. My number 3 horror film from 1983 is John Carpenter's Christine. I can't say much about this movie that you already don't know. It's a Stephen King story directed on screen by John Carpenter, with John Carpenter music, great soundtrack, a fantastic cast. This is just one of my all-time favorite horror films. It was really tough not to put this in the number 1 slot, but god damn, I love this movie. I can't say anything about it you don't know. Christine is a classic, a true classic that is always in rotation in my house. It's so fun and we love it here. So that's why it's my number 3 horror film from 1983. Moving on to my number 2 horror film from 1983. We're gonna take things down a dirty, sleazy, nasty alley for the number 2 film. We're talking about David Cronenberg's Videodrome. Yes, holy crap. This movie blows me away every time I watch it. I feel gross and sweaty and like I need to take a shower and rethink some of my life choices after I watch this movie. This movie is so bothersome to me, but so beautifully grotesque. I don't know how to explain what it is about this movie that sucks me in. You have James Woods, who plays a programmer for his cable TV station, and he's looking for more seedy content. He wants a little bit more risque stuff, a little bit more of the adult film things, and he's sort of exploring the underbelly of pornography when he comes across Videodrome, and it sort of embeds its way into his psyche. I can't say enough good things, but I also don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. Take my word for it, Videodrome is a really good time and you will love it. That's why I made it to my number 2 on this list. Moving on to my number 1 horror film from 1983. This is a sequel that had no right to be a good film. In the grand scheme of things, when you make this movie, you are automatically discounted. You are fighting an uphill battle, but I'm talking about Richard Franklin and Tom Holland's sequel, Psycho 2. This movie is so fucking good. And if you would have told me 10 years ago, I would prefer Psycho 2 over the original Psycho, I'd say you're nuts. But the older I get, the more this film really grows on me. I like everything about it. The way that Norman Bates is trying to be rehabilitated and is trying to move on with his life, and being from this small community that he's from, dealing with the looks of the locals and the stigma, I suppose, that comes along with, you know, being a serial killer, a reformed serial killer. But Anthony Perkins is flawless in this movie. The cast is flawless. Again, this is another 1983 film that has Meg Tilly in it. Important to note, One Dark Night was filmed in 82 but released in 83. But this movie is so good. It's damn near the perfect film. It follows the template of the original Psycho, but is completely original. It's visually stunning. The acting is incredible. It's just a really good story. I find myself watching Psycho 2 and 3 the most out of the franchise. I never got into Bates Motel, either iteration of it, the old school one or the newer one. I never watched any of the Bates Motel stuff. Comment down below, let me know if you like the Bates Motel series, either one, the old school one or the newer one. And let me know if I'm missing out, if they do Norman Bates justice. But there's something about that middle of the franchise, that 2 and 3. You set up Norman Bates to lose his mind again, and then by the time you get to part 3, it's a full-blown slasher film again, but keeping up with Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers and all of that stuff. Once I started looking at all of the films that came out in that year, it was sort of a no-brainer for me. The other entries in this list were tough to come by, but I always had Psycho 2 in my back pocket to make it onto this list, and I knew it was going to be very tough to beat. Anyway, that's my top 5 horror films from 1983. Let me know yours in the comments, but I suppose I should probably get going because, after all, there's a lot of movies out there, and somebody's got to watch them, so why not me, right?